that allows any state, in regards to their self-defense, allows them to disproportionately bombard entire regions, rubble entire regions, and the same areas that the United Nations have prescribed them as shelters for innocents, for those trying to flee war.
Do you condemn the October the 7th attack?
Of course I condemn
Great.
the October 7th
Now,
attack.
if they attacked Israel, they still got hostages in captivity. Israel, Hamas themselves have said they would do it again. Israel has a duty to defend itself and its people and to get the hostages back. It's got to do that. It's got to go into Gaza to do that. Now, in warfare, civilians will be killed. That is an inevitable tragedy of warfare. Innocent civilians will be killed.
One of the biggest hypocrisies I noticed regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is that people will reluctantly, it must be said, condemn direct rocket attacks or brutal terror attacks against the state of Israel, like what happened on October 7th. But then they will also condemn the Israeli response to those attacks. Isn't that strange? If you're condemning terror against Israel, then why is it that you don't allow Israel to respond in any way? We have here British MP Suella Braverman calling out this nonsense here in the Oxford Union debate.
Okay, so you mentioned the word second-class citizens a lot. I wanted to talk about people who actually are second-class citizens. So I have a lot of family in East Jerusalem and the West Bank who are treated by the occupation as second, third, less than animal citizens. They are given temporary residency cards in a city they were born in, whereas somebody who is Jewish from any country in the world can come and live as their next door neighbor and is given permanent residency overnight. That is an apartheid system. Secondly, many members of my family have been racially abused by Israeli settlers, physically and verbally and every way imaginable. They have full protection of the Israeli military. A family friend of my family's was dragged off the streets in 2014, put into a car, burnt to death. His name was Mohammed Abu Khadayr. The Israeli government takes full responsibility for their settlement program. They are encroaching on Palestinian communities in the West Bank. Do you really think that you know better the experiences of Palestinians under occupation to be able to say that Israel is not an apartheid state? It is. I have experienced it. My family have experienced it. Who are you to say that our lived experience is wrong?
Thank you for the question. Can I just ask a question of the audience? And by a show of hands, how many people here believe that Israel has the right to exist?
I don't think the audience survey...
It's entirely relevant. I'm asking a question. By a show of hands, how many people here believe Israel has the right to exist? Okay, less than half of the room. How many people here would condemn the Hamas attacks on October the 7th? Most people, I'm glad to see. And how many people here believe that Israel has the right to self-defense? A minority? Half? Maybe less than half. Thank you. Very helpful for me to understand what kind of wavelength we're on. So if you've got personal family members, I didn't hear your question word for word because of the acoustics, but if you've got family members who've been killed and harmed, my heart goes out to you and them, and innocent people shouldn't be hurt, whatever their religion, whatever their race, whatever their nationality. That's my starting point. Listen, when it comes to Israel and Gaza, Israel is a country that is fighting on several fronts against Islamist jihadist groups, whether it's in the north from Lebanon with Hezbollah, firing thousands of rockets into Israel, killing many people, whether it's obviously Hamas in the south in Gaza and the disgusting, brutal October the 7th attacks where innocent Israelis were murdered.
Which Israel doesn't have a right to respond to, according to the show of hands here.
And where many hostages are still held in captivity, whether it's Islamic Jihad, whether it's the Houthis in Yemen, whether it's Iranian-backed proxies in Syria. There are many, many bodies which are intent on the destruction of Israel. Indeed, the Iranian constitution enshrines it explicitly that it's intent on destroying Israel. And so this is one of the few democracies in the Middle East. This is one of the few countries.
Please allow the guest to answer the question.
It's one of the few democracies in the Middle East. It's one of the few countries where minorities are treated equally.
The only democracy in the Middle East and the only country where minorities are treated equally. Not one of the few, the only one.
Where women are treated equally, where gay people are treated equally, where Muslims and Arabs are treated equally. And so...
Order, please. Do not interrupt. I would ask you to leave the chamber if you interrupt again. Please continue.
And so I very much believe in the idea of the State of Israel and its right to exist and its legal right to defend itself against these terrorist groups which are intent on destroying it. And when you talk about the West Bank is, the Israelis are there, it's disputed territory, but they are there for historical reasons, disputed. They are also there, importantly, for strategic security reasons. And as I've said, Israel, on all fronts, is under attack. It's essential that the Israelis have a presence there to prevent a further invasion by terrorists in the form that we saw on October the 7th, to prevent the murder of Israelis. And that's why it is right that we defend Israel's right to defend herself in the way that they're doing right now. We need to ensure that this war comes to an end, but we also need to ensure that the hostages are released. Women were raped, children were killed. They murdered Kafir and Ariel Bibas in cold blood. They paraded and celebrated the release of hostages as if it was a carnival. They use UNRWA-funded shelters to hold the hostages in. UNRWA-funded shelters that are funded by the British taxpayer because this disgusting Labour government keeps funding UNRWA, an organisation that is complicit with Hamas. So, listen, there will be loss of life in Gaza of innocent people. That's a tragedy. But we need to ensure that Israel is secure, that Israel defends itself against indefensible or unforgivable and brutal terrorism, and that we bring an end to organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah and the other Islamist jihadist groups that are intent on destroying Israel.
So I do want to push on one point. You're a lawyer yourself, and we have seen more than 46,000 people killed, more than 90,000 injured, many thousands children. The entire state of Gaza in rubbles. The United Nations, Amnesty International have declared it's one of the worst crimes and this genocide of the 21st century.
Yeah, one of the worst crimes. The Amnesty International, who began their report on the war in Gaza, saying that on October 7th, Israel decided to launch its offensive on Gaza. Not mentioning what happened on October 7th, which is that Hamas and their civilians in Gaza invaded Israel. And you quote the human rights organizations, appeal to the authority of the human rights organizations that are completely bankrupt. The worst crime of the 21st century. Yeah, right.
The ICC had issued arrest warrants against the Prime Minister of Israel. Is this behavior of a state that believes in equality, human rights, and the rule of law?
Let's go back to the basics of international law and the Genocide Convention, where genocide is defined. Genocide is defined in the international treaty as being a specific intent to destroy a particular group, protected group. And that group is to be defined by ethnicity, nationality, race, or religion. Now, Israel is retaliating following the October the 7th attacks by Hamas. Hamas are a proscribed terrorist organization according to UK law. Israel is fighting against Hamas. Hamas runs Gaza. Hamas has been largely in control of Gaza since 2005. Hamas is using human shields to fight the Israelis. Hamas has constructed a sophisticated and extensive network of tunnels, longer than even the London Underground network of tunnels. Hamas is in receipt of billions of pounds of aid to do so. And so the claims of genocide have been trumped up, are politicized, and frankly, unwarranted. Because targeting a prescribed terrorist organization is not genocide, that is not a breach of international
But 56,000
law.
people killing those wounding.
And how many of them are Hamas? They always say this. They throw the number of people killed, according to Hamas, by the way, and don't mention how many of them are soldiers. The only thing that matters is how many fighters did you kill and the ratio to the number of civilians that were killed, which in the case of Israel is better than any other military. So shut up.
97,000 people and killing many thousand children. I mean, when you talk about international law, then let's talk fully. I mean, under what definition of international humanitarian law does it allow for a state to bomb human rights shelters, to bomb hospitals, to bomb religious places? Give me and point me to a single treaty or international humanitarian law convention, whether it is under the Red Cross conventions or more the Geneva conventions, that allows any state, in regards to their self-defense, allows them to disproportionately bombard entire regions, rubble entire regions, and the same areas that the United Nations have prescribed them as shelters for innocents, for those trying to flee war.
So do you condemn the October the 7th attacks?
Of course I condemn
Great.
the October 7th.
Now, if they attacked Israel, they still got hostages in captivity. Israel, Hamas themselves have said they would do it again. Israel has a duty to defend itself and its people and to get the hostages back. It's got to do that. It's got to go into Gaza to do that. Now, in warfare, civilians will be killed. That is an inevitable tragedy of warfare. Innocent civilians will be killed. That is not a reason, unfortunately, to not defend your country and your people. And unfortunately, even over 2 years on, hostages, or nearly over 2 years on, over a year on, hostages have not been released. There is still, Hamas have still shown intent to attack Israel. And unfortunately, Israel is still left in the position where it's forced to defend itself. What would you do? You just stop? You'd give up on getting the hostages? No. Israel has to go in and get the hostages. You can't just abandon your people. You can't just allow your country to be attacked again by a group that has said that they would do it again. So, yes, and as for the International Court of Justice and their action against Israel, they have been shown to be totally politicized, I'm afraid. The suggestion that there is genocide, as I said, is totally unfounded according to
So are you saying that the
international law.
ICC warrants are wrong against Benjamin Netanyahu?
I am saying I disagree with
What
the
about
issuance of those
Putin?
ICC warrants. Of course
about-
I do. Those.
So is the ICC warrant against Putin correct?
Yes, of course it is.
And it's
because
wrong
Putin
against
has
Benjamin Netanyahu.
Putin has engaged in a brutal invasion of another democratic sovereign nation. Hamas in Israel, it's not comparable at
So
all.
the same ICC.
Hamas, a proscribed terrorist organization, has invaded Israel, murdered innocent Israelis, taken them hostage, and vowed to do it again.
But the same
It is
international-
absolutely incumbent on the Israeli state to take self-defensive measures.
The same International Criminal Court that you have so much confidence in when it issued arrest warrants against Putin is the same court that it issued arrest warrant against Netanyahu. Isn't there a double standard when it comes to one country that you like so much, you don't like the ICC, but when it comes to another and you don't like so much, you like them?
No. Unfortunately, there is institutional capture with many of these organizations, whether it's the ICC, whether it's the ICJ, the United Nations, Amnesty International, all sorts of NGOs. They've all, they all parrot the talking points, the anti-Israel talking points, and this is the world we live in. There is a high level of anti-Israel sentiment. There's a high level of anti-Semitism. There is, look at these people out there. You know, they may be, I don't know if they are, shouting from the river to the sea. That is a chant for the eradication of Israel from the face of the map. That is a chant for the extermination of Israelis. That's anti-Semitic, if they are chanting it. I don't know if they're chanting it, but a lot of these protesters often chant it. And it is an anti-Semitic chant to my mind. So it's become, the problem we've got is anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment has become a left-wing kind of campaign. It's become, it's a distortion. It's a distortion of right and wrong, actually. And of course, we want innocent Palestinians to have a place to live and for them to live in safety and security. But I'm afraid, and we also know that a majority of the Palestinian people do actually support Hamas. That is a concerning piece of evidence. Israel has the right, and I would say the duty, to defend itself.
Suella, you're babbling too much, lady. You're pandering too much. This guy, the appeal to authority always, international law says, get the F out of here, international law says. Hamas don't give an F about international law. Everything they do is against international law. The execution of their own people inside Gaza, the direct attack against civilians, the use of all those civilian areas that you say, how does Israel bomb them? Because they use them as launching pads against Israel. And the fact that they promote jihad and they want to kill the infidel, which is the Jews, and also the infidels in Britain at some point down the road. And you're babbling about Israel has the right to defend itself. No, this is not the way to do it, lady. This is not the way to do it. I don't think a single person in that audience was convinced by Suella's attempt to defend here Israel. And even though she was correct in pointing out their bias, people have to stop being so defensive when defending Israel. If you defend, you can at most survive. If you attack, you can win. If you're an American viewer, you play baseball. If you pitch perfectly, you'll end 0-0 and you'll get a draw. But you have to go to bat. And if you're playing football or soccer, I don't know who I'm talking to over here, then if you just bunker and defend, you'll end maybe 0-0. You have to attack. You have to attack them and their disgusting movement, which is a movement of bigotry, which wants to annihilate the state of Israel, which will use any type of violence and celebrate it. The guy at the beginning talked about his family member, Muhammad Abu Khdir. I remember the story in 2014. You know why? Because it's so rare where such a brutal terror attack occurs, where Jews in a terror attack Muslims. And when it happened, all of Israel was shocked. And indictments were filed against the attackers and they were put in prison. What would happen if it's the other way around with the Palestinians? They would be celebrated as martyrs. They would get a stipend from the Palestinian Authority, paid to slay. For the end of their lives, they'd be paid for the great feat of murdering random innocent Israelis. Their cause is the bankrupt one. They want to annihilate Israel for ideological reasons, religious reasons, and cultural, historical reasons of we get to dominate, they live under us. They get to live under us. And then you go into respected places like Oxford and some dumb Paki jihadi like the guy over there who was the moderator, talk about international law and disproportionate response and all this crap. Wait till it comes to you in Europe. Well, it's already come to you in Europe, but wait until you have nowhere to retreat to anymore. You know, at the moment you can retreat to your city and wherever it is, in your nicer neighborhood, maybe to the Oxford Union debate, but there comes a point where you have nowhere to retreat to. And then what are you going to do? And then what are you going to do when people are going to say, oh, you're being disproportionate, you've killed too many civilians? Let's see how you respond when that day comes to you, because that day is not too far off in Europe. It's already kind of there for some people. People in places of Rotherham and Birmingham and Luton, there is no line of retreat anymore. Then we'll see how you act, folks.